Kia ora and welcome to the Niche Cast. We're from thenichecache.com and we are here to talk about Aotearoa sport. That's all we do. You know what we do. You know who we are. We are just here to enjoy a bit of Aotearoa sporting action, and we are recording this fresh after another Blackcaps win another Blackcaps win in ODI cricket, fresh after their win over Bangladesh. 2 wins to start the Champions Trophy. And we will be talking a lot of Blackcaps today. We've also got a White Ferns squad, a funky old White Ferns squad to digest. We've got 4 trophy finals. We've got Halliburton Johnston Shield finals. We've got a Football Ferns game and series in Costa Rica. We've got the Aotearoa Derby, which there's only really one team in the Aotearoa Derby at the moment, Auckland FC, the Blue Riders. They have won all the Derby games, so shout out to them. And as always, I'm partial to the Wellington Phoenix. I don't think this is disastrous for the Wellington Phoenix, and we'll discuss that later on. We have NRL footy starting this weekend. First round in some place that we don't need to worry about, but the Warriors are playing the Raiders. And I think we also have the Panthers versus Sharks. So we will be discussing some Kiwi NRL angles there. All Blacks had a game against the Philippines. Bumper crowd. That was in Auckland, right?
Yeah, it was. It was either Auckland or Manila. I couldn't tell, but yeah, pretty sure it was Spark Arena.
Bumper crowd for the Tall Blacks versus Philippines. Shout out to the Kiwi Filipinos out there getting out and supporting basketball in Aotearoa. And while we're talking about crowd sizes, 27,000 for the Aotearoa Derby, way bigger than any Super Rugby crowd. And I'd also highlight, I don't have facts and figures, but I do have a vibe. And it's a very interesting vibe because the Warriors pre-season game versus the Melbourne Storm in Hamilton, definitely. No facts and figures, but definitely had a bigger crowd than the Chiefs Super Rugby game in Hamilton. So the Warriors got a bigger pre-season crowd in Hamilton than the Chiefs got for a proper Super Rugby game. It's just updating what is actually happening in Aotearoa sport, because these things are consistently overlooked by other folks, and that's what we're here to discuss. Rugby league, bigger crowds than Super Rugby. Footballs, bigger crowds than Super Rugby. Blackcaps, bigger crowds than Super Rugby in Pakistan, playing against Bangladesh. Everyone wants to talk shit about ODI cricket, but I mean, folks are showing out. That's all that matters. We're having a good time. So shout out to cricket, shout out to Aotearoa sport, and also shout out to Joseph Parker, because we do need to discuss a bit of Joseph Parker as well after his victory on the weekend. But first, I just want to get your feelings on your favorite Blackcaps cricketer right now. Who is your favorite Blackcaps cricketer? We're almost 2 months down into 2025. We had some Test cricket in Aotearoa. We had some T20 ODI cricket in Aotearoa versus Sri Lanka. We had the Tri-Series. Now we got the Champions Trophy. And who is your favorite Blackcaps cricketer right now?
Well, I mean, the straight answer would be the same one that it's probably been for like 10 years, which it'd be Kane Williamson. Like when he nicks off for 5 early in an ODI, I feel it in my gut in a way that I don't feel it necessarily when Will Young gets bowled through the gate in the first over. That was disappointing. I wanted to see him put up another big score. I always enjoy watching Will Young bat, but it it hits a little bit differently with Kane Williamson. But I think the funky thing about the Blackcaps at the moment is if you were to say, okay, well, that's the obvious one, like take aside the greatest ever player that we've had, or at least the greatest ever batter that we've had, put that guy aside and pick someone else. I actually don't know how I would answer that. Like, I don't know who I would say would be the next up, because on any given day, not only on any given day might I feel differently and say, well, today I'm feeling a little bit of Glenn Phillips or Michael Bracewell, or no, I like the classy the batting strokes of Will Young. Or then the next day I might think, well, well, yeah, but Will Young's not aggressive enough. I want a few more boundaries in there, so it's got to be Rachin Ravindra or whoever, Daryl Mitchell maybe someday, because who doesn't want to see straight drives to six? Um, and that's without even getting into the bowling side of things. It's like Mitchell Santner tying up an end and batters just getting flabbergasted trying to find runs off him is always fun. Matt Henry, like superhuman at the moment. Not just at the moment. Matt Henry's superhuman for like the last 2 years. Will O'Rourke coming in and doing freaky things like or the return of Kyle Jamieson overnight as well. That was a welcome one as on top of everything else. Like on a different day, I might feel differently. And it's not just that on a different day, I might feel differently. It's what we've been seeing from the Blackcaps in the last couple of weeks of this ODI tour is on a different day, a different batter or bowler steps up anyway. Like they're just taking in turns to be the dominant force in each game. Like they won 5 games in a row and it feels like they've been different standout batters and bowlers in every one of those games. So they're recycling, like not recycling. They're just cycling through the spotlights themselves. So it's harder then for us as fans to then cycle. Well, the encouragement is then for us as fans to cycle through them as well. But that's a beautiful thing. Like that's kind of the perfect situation for a cricket team to be in. It's like one day one guy dominates and wins the other game. The next guy, someone else steps up and wins the other game. And the next game, it's a third player or a fourth player. They seem to be hitting a nice little sweet spot at the moment. So I'm hoping this continues onwards into a Champions Trophy championship. I mean, why not? They're already into the semi-finals.
I mean, yeah, I agree. We'll talk about the Blackcaps playing cricket, different dudes scoring runs, different dudes taking wickets, but who's your favourite?
Well, I said Kane Williamson was the favourite.
Okay, that's all right. That's all we need. Kane Williamson.
Yeah.
Kane Williamson, who is currently averaging 3 in the Champions Trophy.
Yeah.
So that's good there. My favorite right now, to be honest, is the Beast, Michael Bracewell. I just love everything Michael Bracewell does. Older cricketer, he's made massive improvements and development strides. Heading into his mid-30s, he was an awesome cricketer as a teenager. He was in those under-19 teams with Bolt, Southey, Williamson, and so on. Opening batter for Otago, grinds away, moves up to Wellington, and just keeps blossoming. Big hitter in the Super Smash. Then he starts bowling spin. Now he's out here. Let's check in. How old is Michael Bracewell? 34 years old. And he's just coming into his prime as a Blackcaps cricketer, having a fantastic Champions Trophy. Of course, I like all the Blackcaps. My love for Glenn Phillips is undeniable. But I also really appreciate Will O'Rourke. Because there's no bullshit with Will O'Rourke. To the point where there was a game, might have been an ODI T20 in New Zealand against Sri Lanka, and he had to swap positions because he wasn't wearing sunglasses. But the problem is he never wears sunglasses. So, of course, he's not going to field looking into the sun because he never wears sunglasses. That's how no fuss Will O'Rourke is. I've never seen him wear sunglasses. Apparently, he doesn't wear sunglasses playing cricket when every cricketing geezer wants to wear the goofiest sunglasses possible. But there's Will O'Rourke, no sunglasses. So shout out. But I think Michael Bracewell right now, on the 25th of February, he's my favourite. The journey, how he plays his cricket, smashes boundaries, bowls off spin. No one thinks he should be good at spin bowling, but he is. Good fielder. Talked about his hat barely fits his head. Cricket ball looks like a marble in his hand when he's bowling off spin. It's fun stuff. Fun stuff. And this is the Niche Cast. We're from thenichecache.com. Lots of deep dives on the website. Got all the basic information for Ford Trophy, Halliburton Johnston Shield. Still got a Warriors preseason notebook that goes hard. Did do an early Aotearoa Kiwis mixer. We've got a reaction yarn to the Auckland FC win over Wellington Phoenix, the third derby. Lots of Aotearoa Sport deep dives on our website, thenichecache.com. We also have our newsletter via Substack, thenichecache.substack.com, that is full of Aotearoa sporting information. And if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy what we're doing covering Aotearoa sport, you can join the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/ELNichecache. And that's a couple of dollars a month to really get behind the Niche Cache and support what we're doing. We've also got a paid Substack newsletter option. You can hit us up on Buy Me a Coffee. But of course, we're poor hearters. So if you're like us and you can't afford to support your favorite creators, it's all good because we're out here. You can listen. You can read. If you can't listen, you can read. If you can't read, you can listen. And if you can't do either of those things, hopefully you're just outside in the bush having a good old time as Aotearoa moves deeper into summer, and maybe we'll start spring sometime soon. Let's get a bit of mindfulness on the back of that seasonal chat.
Radio. Khalil Gibran, he said, when I planted my pain in the field of patience, it bore fruit of happiness.
Rocky Jack. When I planted my pain in the field of patience, that hits home, that hits home. What was the rest of it?
When I planted my pain in the field of patience, it bore fruit of happiness.
But happiness always goes hard. Shout out to happiness. That's all we're trying to do. Be here, be happy. But it takes a lot of work to find your happiness. It takes a lot of work to be happy. And sometimes that work means a bit of pain and a lot of patience. So shout out to everyone doing their best around Aotearoa to be happy, to be the best version of themselves. And just have a go today. As we always say, have a crack. Have a crack at being happy. Like, it's actually it's not just have a crack in life, like do your best, try to be the best version of yourself, but actually have a crack at being happy, because there's a lot of people, they kind of seem to enjoy not being happy. But we're out here, we're trying to be happy, we're trying to enjoy ourselves and have a bit of fun as well. I had a bit of fun watching Joseph Parker finish the fight against, who was he fighting? Bicole?
Martin Bicole, that's the one.
But I do have a question, because old mate Bicole did the old wobbly leg. It looked like he was the best way to sum it up, I reckon, is he might have had a few too many Aotearoa vitamins, a few too many fungi, a few too many beverages, if you're that way inclined as well, and he was trying to imitate Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. But he got a bit wobbly leg. Like, he was a bit wobbly on his feet. But how did you interpret that? Like, because it looked like it was a body shot. So is Joseph Parker so powerful and so accurate and such an awesome puncher that he gives his opponents the wobbly legs with a body shot? Now, obviously, you can hit the liver. There's obvious combat experts know there's areas of the body that can, if you hit them really hard, they can shut down your body. But it's Joseph Parker. He's not necessarily a knockout artist. And he didn't even knock this dude out with a punch to the noggin. He gave him the wobbly leg with a body shot.
Well, he sort of did, because I think the one that actually sent him down was it was weird as watching it, because it happened and he started wobbling and he hit the deck, and I'm sort of like, but he didn't touch him? What happened? But I think on the replays, there's an uppercut where he swings it across, which I think actually does glance across his head. So I think that's the one that took him down. But I don't think that was the one that did the damage so much as the one that was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back, like the little one to just shove him over, to push him over the edge. Because right before that, and actually earlier in the round, it happened then as well, like probably within about 30 seconds of the finish, he had hit him cleanly, like to the face. just like straight through the gates. The dude was dangling one of his arms, like he was only really using his jab arm. The other one was just hanging out there, like tucked in, like a baby bird or something. I'm not sure what he was waiting for there, but he like yeah, Parker cleaned him through one. Looked almost a little bit on top of the head, I think, with one of them, but the second one definitely was basically straight to the nose, like got him right between the eyes. And Bacoli like shook it off. Like he did the little you didn't hurt me kind of thing, like wobbling his head around um to make it look like he's shrugging it off. And then listening to the commentary that I had on, which was one of the English channels, and they were so into this Martin Bacoli fairy tale story. It's like, oh, this absolute champion, he's taking the fight at short notice. He only turned up at 3 a.m. on fight day and blah, blah, blah. And they were so keen on this idea of he's the most dangerous heavyweight. No one wants to fight him and whatever. And to the point where he gets punched clean in the face, and they're like, "Ha! See, Parker didn't even hurt it. Look this Bacoli guy. He's a machine. He's a monster. He's just shrugging off a shot straight to the face without thinking like." Maybe if you get punched in the face in the second round of the fight, that's actually a bad thing. Like, whether it hurt you or not, that's actually a really bad sign, especially when you know your conditioning is bad and you're supposed to be punishing Parker in the first couple rounds because it's likely that you won't have the legs to go much beyond that. Well, if he's getting rocked within what was supposed to be his time to pounce, I don't think that's a great sign. And I actually think also if you're doing the little mind games of, you didn't hurt me in the second round of a fight, it probably did hurt you. You know, I think if you're trying a little bit too hard at that point, you're kind of betraying the fact that I think maybe you're actually in a bit of pain from that. So I suspect that was the punch that actually did a lot of the damage, and that when he caught him with a glancer later on, it was maybe just like sort of tipping him over the edge rather than an actual like clean 0 to 100 finish like that. Because it was a weird one. Like I said, watching it live, I thought he missed with that punch. I thought it was like I thought, yeah, maybe it was one of the body shots just before that had done him or something. But I think the replay does show he glances him, and I think the glancing was more just like like finishing off a job that he'd already set up with a few good shots earlier. It's a pretty dominant win from Joseph Parker, and probably his most significant knockout. Like, I'm skeptical, having seen that, about how much of a danger Bacoli actually is, because yes, he's got a great knockout record. Like, yes, he's he's clearly a powerful puncher, but also he hadn't fought anyone significant. I think his loss came against Michael Hunter. It was not recently, but so it was earlier on in his career, but still, like, that's not so like you lost to Klitschko or someone like that, you know. You're beaten by a guy who was probably a worse career than Joseph Parker's had. So Parker is your best fight. I was skeptical about this idea that he was coming in super dangerous. I think he's obviously a much better fighter than what he showed in that fight. No one's going to be good if you turn up, no preparation, outside of training camp, arrive at 3 a.m. on fight day, like probably get off the plane, have a nap, wake up, go to fight Joseph Parker, who thought he was going to fight for a heavyweight title in this fight, so was in the shape of his life. And one of, if not the heaviest, I think it might be the heaviest he's ever weighed in for a fight as well. So he was obviously getting himself ready for a brawl against Daniel Dubois, if that's the case, if he's really bulking up for it. You're on a hiding to nothing, no matter how much of a fairy tale people might like to think about it. And boxing does lend itself towards that, where it's the stories of the guy who came from nowhere to knock out the champion kind of thing. There's a few of those through history, but it wasn't going to happen like that. You realize once the fight got going, it was a bit of a foregone conclusion. But Joseph Parker did what he needed to do. You know, it was a commanding win, probably his most significant knockout win, because all his other big wins. Well, all his knockouts have mostly been just not so much about I've knocked you out, more like you can't hang about in the ring with me because you're nowhere near the same class. Like, all of his knockouts were earlier in the career or against the sort of keep busy fights that he's had since then in between, or building back after losses. His significant wins have almost all come by decisions, but this one didn't. This was a big knockout, which maybe he'll get a reschedule against Daniel Dubois. If they do, I think that is now a more enticing fight, thanks to what Parker just did here. That would help them. They might be able to raise up the contracts a little bit, but we'll have to see what happens, because the heavyweight division is in a little bit of a little bit of a weird state, as it always seems to be. And unfortunately for Parker, he was supposed to be fighting for a heavyweight title, didn't get that chance just through bad luck. You know, the opponent getting sick at the wrong time. And now we just have to hope that chance comes around again. But he certainly didn't do himself any. He didn't do his chances of getting another one any damage there with a commanding victory, as we saw.
The Tall Blacks also appear to have had a commanding victory over the Philippines. As I said, interesting atmosphere because there was a big Filipino crowd that rallied behind their team in Auckland. The Tall Blacks won that game 87-70. Was that a one-off? Like, there's no more Tall Blacks games coming up in the short term?
No, because they've had it was the last game of qualifiers for Asia Cup. It was a significant one because they weren't expecting this to be the case because they'd lost to Philippines earlier in the qualifying, which was an upset in the Philippines as well. It was an upset, but it put them in a situation where they might have had trouble finishing top of the thing. They didn't have any trouble qualifying. Philippines and New Zealand are both already qualified through the group. They did have games on, was it Friday morning, I think, New Zealand time. We smashed Hong Kong. But what happened in the other game was Philippines were upset by Chinese Taipei. It was a bit of a shocking result there, which meant that the Tall Blacks didn't have to worry about points differential or anything like that. All they had to do was beat Philippines in the last game of the qualifying series to finish top, which doesn't make a huge difference. Like, you get slightly better seeding for the Asia Cup itself. That's really the only thing on show. But still, you're playing in front of a home crowd, even though it didn't feel or look or sound like a home crowd. Still a home crowd. You want to win anyway, and there was something on the line, which was that top seed, that top qualifying seed. And yeah, they went out there and bossed it against Philippines. It's not like we haven't really seen a full strength Tall Black squad through any of their 6 Asia Cup games. I was looking at the thing of the Asia Cup qualifying games. I was looking at the thing of the players that they've used. They've used 27 different players, plus Alex McNaught was in one of the squads and didn't play. But among the players that they didn't use, like we didn't see Ty Webster in any of these games, didn't see Finn Delaney, Sam Menenga, Yanni Wetzel, Isaac Fotu didn't play. Needless to say, no Stephen Adams either. So like, they didn't have to dip into their very best players, bringing them away from whatever club situations they happen to be in. So, and they were still able to finish top of the group, getting a lot of debuts out there, using 28 different players within the squad, 27 of them getting on the court. There's a clear focus there, and it started before Judd Flavel took over as coach, but he's only continued and expanded that. Like, clear focus on building out the depth. There's the element I've mentioned a few times about like giving some of these young guys early debuts, like debuts probably before they've earned it, but to just help them win the development, a few minutes off the bench here or there, cycling through different guys. Jackson Ball and Tom Isaac being the latest on that kind of procession there. So good stuff. It was a good solid performance where the game itself against Philippines very much lent on like Toy Smith-Milner hit a bunch of threes. Jordan Ata hit a few threes. I think Ruben Tarangi scored in double figures. Corey Webster took over in the fourth quarter when Philippines, spurred by the crowd, were threatening to consider a comeback. I don't think they got within double figures, but they did shake it down from like a 28-point deficit to about, I think it got down to 11 points. So there was definitely hints of a comeback, like a couple more shots, a couple more stops, and they might have done something, but Corey Webster ensured that wasn't the case. So very much leaning on their veterans in terms of getting the victory in that game. But looking across the whole of the Asia Cup qualifying campaign, and I expect because it's the Asia Cup, it's not World Cup or Olympic qualifying or anything, it's Asia Cup, I expect we'll probably see a bit more of that in the tournament itself in August, is continuing to look at some of the depth and given a few guys who haven't had tournament experience, giving them some of that so that perhaps they're ready for the next Olympic cycle or whatever. So yeah, no, good stuff from the Tall Blacks. Just building out that depth and grinding out those results. Can't ask for much more than that.
You did mention Stephen Adams, and I'm just checking his game logs because I had an interesting thought about Stephen Adams. He's gone like his whole season is basically play a few games, rest, play a few games, rest. But he did have a period where he was playing over 10 minutes for 10 games or so, 20 games almost. Definitely closer to 10, probably 13, I'd estimate. But his last 3 games, he's gone below 10 minutes, and he played the fewest minutes in a long time in the win over Minnesota, 4 minutes 39 seconds to be precise. And then instead of a inactive, instead of a did not play, instead of a did not dress, he was listed as not with team. So there might be something going on there. I don't know what's happening, but we'll wait and see. Usually, to be honest, this season with the Houston Rockets, it just seems like they're managing his workload pretty nicely. But I have heard various NBA voices, because I follow the apparently regular pattern of not watching much NBA, but listening to a lot of NBA coverage. Everyone talks shit about Houston Rockets and their offense. You know, they don't have a good half-court offense. They don't, at the end of the game, it looks like a bit of chaos. They're not a very efficient team or whatever it is. They need to get a shooter. They need one of the big dogs in the NBA, because every NBA team needs a star player, and you need a star player to score your points, and all these very American ideals. But it seems like a nice partnership if your offense isn't fantastic and you're missing shots, and you have one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. Because Steven Adams is only getting offensive rebounds because they miss shots. So then it becomes like, okay, Steven Adams, did he score the rebound? Do you get second chance points and all that stuff, which I can't be bothered to look up right now. But the basic premise, the basic concept of you miss your shot and Steven Adams is an awesome offensive rebounder kind of balances it out. And we're not talking Steven Adams, he's all right at offensive rebounds. Like, you go to Funaki stats, you get deep into the numbers and the metrics. Steven Adams is a legendary offensive rebounder. And he's only getting those offensive rebounds because players are missing shots. So in a roundabout way, I kind of think it's all good. And I think it's actually a nice little combination that, okay, you might not have the best offensive pattern and structure, you might not have the best shooters, but you do have a dude who's going to get a lot of those offensive rebounds and keep you in the contest if you are missing your shots, because he's going to get in those rebounds because you're missing your shots.
Yeah, and from memory, I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I'm pretty sure like their offensive ratings and stuff like that, especially when Steven Adams is on the floor, are really high, like significantly high. And that's part of why, is because you don't even need to shoot at an above average clip if Steven Adams is out there, because the offensive rebounds come your way. You get more free possessions. The other team doesn't get to take a shot in between those possessions. You get back-to-back efforts. Usually an NBA team is going to do pretty well with that. And he doesn't even have to grab the rebound. Like, his personal offensive rebounding numbers are crazy. But then you look at like team things when he's on there, and I think he is like his influence is as much for, well, maybe not as much. Like, he's still grabbing most of those offensive rebounds, but because he's got this reputation and because he's got this gravity, like, and well earned as well, like off the back of being the best offensive rebounder in the NBA for the last few years, you often see like everyone is hyper focused on him, and he still will half the time will grab those because he's anticipating it before anyone else. But then also there are other times where like two guys go to shut down Steven Adams and know like, well, we can't let him get to the free shot, and someone else just swoops in like untouched and grabs it themselves. Like the team overall has a high, he's not grabbing all of them, but the team still has a higher offensive rebounding thing whenever he's around, which has been the case since, frankly, his last couple seasons in Oklahoma City, and has continued on every team he's played for since then, including New Orleans Pelicans. Even though that wasn't a very happy or fruitful time, the offensive rebounding thing was still true while he was there. Like, They also had Zion Williamson, so that probably helped matters a little bit as well, though I'm pretty sure he was injured for a lot of that season, as he's injured for a lot of his seasons, to be fair. So yeah, like there's a very clear way in which Steven Adams will make your team a better, more efficient team without necessarily it looking like that to the people who are crunching stats. Like you might still be looking at the field goal percentages and is this a clear open shot? Like no, but like if you're getting more positions than the other team, you don't need to be taking the most efficient shots every time. It's better. Like the more you can, the better. But also he will bail you out of some of those bad positions. Plus, not to mention like it's also a legendary screener. And people seem to think when they come up this, like, the idea of how do you get floor spacing out there? How do you get open shots? Like, well, you need a center who can shoot. But actually you don't, because you don't need wide open 3 meter but like coverage 3-pointers to be able to hit them. Good NBA shooters need like half a meter. You don't even need that much space. And if you can get a solid screener, that is all you need. And Steven Adams does that for the dudes on the perimeter. He also does that for dudes trying to drive to the hoop. So he does these. It's not subtle for us because we sort of know what the points are to look for with Steven Adams. But I still think there are a lot of people who, if you're looking for the overall picture, if you're just watching the Houston Rockets and Steven Adams is a guy coming off the bench, you're not focusing on that. You're focusing on what Fred VanVleet or Jalen Green or whoever is doing. I mean, Thompson lately, or certainly Alperen Sengun. You're focusing on these guys and you're looking at the starting five and whatever and the coaching setups and things. You're maybe not necessarily looking at this other like secret weapon they have off the bench who's done excellent in his minutes and who they're very clearly, I think, priming him. I would hope for a bigger role in playoffs, but at the very least, they're priming him to make sure he's good to go in playoffs, so they at least have that option. And the regular season looks we see from them aren't necessarily what we're going to see later on because they have, they've tried out some things. They've tried out the Steven Adams bigger minutes. Sometimes they're not doing that. They're not going to rush him through if he's feeling any niggles or anything like that. They've made that clear. They've tried out in very small doses the Sengun and Adams on the court at the same time combination, which I hope we see a lot of in the playoffs. But I mean, there's tricks up the sleeve, from Coach Ime Udoka, who is not necessarily going to show all of his cards during the regular season. Like I'm thinking he's plotting a few things that it's not going to be obvious. I don't necessarily think that the impression people get of the Houston Rockets right now in February is going to fully reflect what they look like in a couple of months when the playoffs start.
The Blackcaps, they had their win over Bangladesh. Who did what? The Blackcaps restricted Bangladesh to 236 for 9. Matt Henry, 1 wicket, 6.3 RPO. Kyle Jamieson, 1 wicket, 5.3 RPO. Michael Bracewell, 4 wickets, 2.6 RPO. Will O'Rourke, 2 wickets, 4.8 RPO. Santner, 10 overs, 4.4 RPO. G. Philly, 2 overs, 5 RPO. With the bat, Will Young, Quacker, the Duck, the Donald Ducker. Devon Conway, who was not mentioned in our favourite Blackcaps conversation, but respectfully to Devon Conway, 30 runs. Kane Williamson, 5 runs. Rachin Ravindra, 112 runs, or a strike rate of 106.6. Tommy Latham, now in form, 55 runs, strike rate of 72. G. Philly, 21 not out. Michael Bracewell, 11 not out. That is the victory for the Blackcaps. The Blackcaps are now 7-1 in ODIs. 5 consecutive ODI wins, all of them by at least 50 runs or 5 wickets. Their next game in the Champions Trophy is against their second best team in the world, India. And that game, I think, is on Sunday night. Let me confirm that. Yes, Sunday the 2nd of March, overnighter against the second best team in the world. Heard a lot of best team in the world kind of stuff with India. I don't know. They just played a series in India against a team that's not very good in ODIs. England, they just beat Pakistan. What do we know about Pakistan? They're not very good at ODIs. All these teams aren't very good. If you beat them, you're the best team in the world, though. New Zealand, so far, we just beat everyone. We beat Sri Lanka and New Zealand. We beat South Africa and Pakistan. We won a bunch of ODIs against Pakistan in Pakistan. We just beat Bangladesh in Pakistan. What more do you want? Maybe a win over India would just like solidify it a bit more, because we do have that Aotearoa bias that we do carry with us. Hearty Kiwis over here. Rachin Ravindra came back into the team. So Daryl Mitchell was out with the illness. Rachin Ravindra comes into the team, bats 4. I still think the best situation is opening with Will Young and Rachin Ravindra and bumping Devon Conway out. Devon Conway's got 40 runs and an average of 20 in his 2 games. So he was in form during the Tri-Series period. Start of Champions Trophy proper, he's got 40 runs at an average of 20. But most importantly, he's got a strike rate of 64. Rachin Ravindra has a career strike rate over 100. Tommy Latham, 2 innings at the Champions Trophy, he's got a strike rate of 96. Will Young, test batter, gritty Kiwi batter with a free-flowing strokes. He does have the strokes, but he's also more of a solid test opener. Strike rate of 90. This is the thing about Devon Conway. When he's struggling for runs, he scores really slowly. And if we go to ODIs this year, Devon Conway's got a strike rate of 76. Ravindra, this year, strike rate of 115. Phillips, this year, strike rate of 118. Will Young, 88. Kane Williamson, 90. Tommy Latham, 91. Daryl Mitchell, 90. Mark Chapman, 102. Michael Bracewell, 95. And Devon Conway, 76. Like, he's not Barbara Azam or anything, but I mean, if he's not scoring runs and he's not scoring them quickly, I still believe the best batting lineup is Will Young, Rachin Ravindra, Kane Williamson, Daryl Mitchell, and so on. Tom Latham, number 5. Build from there. The other, as you alluded to, the other funky, quirky, got my words mixed up there, quunky, furky selection was Kyle Jamieson coming into the first 11 straight away, having been called up to replace Lockie Ferguson. I mean, shout out Jacob Duffy. I sees you. You're still there. You're still doing your thing, but you can't get into the team. Seems like Jacob Duffy can never get into the team, but that's all right. We like him. Kyle Jamieson, as I noticed in the Super Smash, swinging the ball both ways. It wasn't hooping both ways in Pakistan as it might in Aotearoa, but he still moved the ball both ways. And that is the biggest thing about Kyle Jamieson. Yes, he's tall. Yes, he gets crazy bounce. Yes, he is tall, gets crazy bounce and bowls 135 Ks, sometimes given 138 a nudge. But he does all that, swinging the ball both ways. That is the craziest skill set that Kyle Jamieson has. And he showed signs of it in conditions that aren't, like, not many other dudes were swinging the ball, but he was still getting a little bit of shape, a little bit of away swing from the right-hander, a little bit of in-swing to the right-hander when he wants to. He controls it. That is what I like about Kyle Jamieson the most.
Yeah, I tend to agree about the opening partnership. Because I was noticing the same thing with Devon Conway as it was happening last night, which was like Ravindra was out there flowing away pretty nicely. It's the same thing as well that happened in the Pakistan game where Will Young was scoring pretty much close to like roundabout a runner ball, a little bit under, but roundabout a runner ball after we'd lost a couple wickets at the other end because, Kane Williamson didn't score runs in either of these games. And with Young and Conway, it was the opening partnership. So Conway's wicket led to Williamson's wicket, and then Mitchell didn't hang around much either. And then it was the Latham and Young partnership that took the Blackcaps through. Also a very good Latham and Ravindra partnership. So yeah, it feels like a long, long time ago that we're talking about Tom Latham being in bad ODI form. Like, suddenly he's not just had 2 really important knocks in a row, but also been involved in 2 really big partnerships within that sort of anchored the entire innings for the Blackcaps. So he's He's batting well personally, and he's batting well with his partners. Good stuff. And yeah, but yeah, I don't. Devon Conway scored good runs in the practice games. That was cool. But even then, if you're saying his yearly strike rate is still only in the mid 70s, he can't have been scoring that quickly in those games. I don't remember it being as much of an issue, but I definitely noticed it in both of these games where the partnership he was involved in, um, it was the other guy who was kind of taking charge. And those two other guys that we're talking about, Will Young went on and scored 100 in that game. Rachi Ravindra went on and scored 100 in this game. They're the two guys we're talking about as the other alternative options in the in the opening spots. So with it hasn't happened yet because Ravindra obviously still unavailable for the first game. He only returned from his concussion for this match against Bangladesh. But as he returned, Daryl Mitchell stepped out with illness. So they haven't needed to pick the first 11 yet. There's always been one guy missing to where it's easy just to working around that. If they're not playing again until Sunday night, I would imagine that Daryl Mitchell will be feeling better by then. And if he is feeling better by then, you have a decision to make. And I suspect the decision is the one you've highlighted there, because you can't take the guy who's been scoring mid 60s strike rate over the other two options who have each scored hundreds within the last two games, right? Like that decision seems like it makes itself just based on the overwhelming production there between the three of them. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, at this rate, someone else maybe it'll be Kane Williamson's turn to be injured and rest for the India game, protect him for the semi-finals or something. They might find some other reason. They seem to be um, they seem to roll with a change or two each game, but also they seem to be able to roll with a change or two each game. Like Ravindra just slotted in at 4, sweet as, no dramas. Carl Jamieson came in, wasn't amazing, but he was good enough. Like what did he get? Like 1 for 48 or something. So would have liked another wicket or two, but that's Michael Bracewell was hogging all the wickets, so there weren't a lot to go around, and he kept the RPO tidy while still being threatening, with a little bit of swing, like you say, both ways, and good solid Kyle Jamieson type areas. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So they've got a strong squad that can withstand a few ins and outs per game. So I think it's good to see all this, but then also, yes, you do come to the point where you also have to pick an 11 at some stage. Like that's got to happen, and we'll see what it looks like. But I think it's pretty undeniable at this point that as far as the opening stuff goes, you got to lean towards the guys who have scored hundreds, right? Like it just that seems simple enough.
A little bit more background on Devon Conway's strike rate. So we've talked about this before. In the SA20, he did score 272 runs. So he was one of 9 batters who scored over 250 runs. But Devon Conway had a strike rate of 114, and he was the only batter with over 250 runs who had a strike rate below 125. So that was the most recent T20 competition. If we go to his T20 international batting, comes out of the gates 2020 strike rate of 151. That's got lower with each of the next few years. 2021 he goes down to 135. 2022 he goes down to 122.4. 2023 he goes down to 110. This year in T20s, or last year in T20s, he did jump up a little bit to 118. But it's a very different look when you're below 120. Like he was over 120 in his first 3 years, then he's below 120 in his last 2 years of T20 international batting. We go to ODI cricket. 2023, the World Cup year where he was very good up until the second game of the World Cup. Strike rate of 98.7. This year, he's got a strike rate of 76. So it's like these little strike rate indicators for a player like Devon Conway. Like if he's confident, if he's free-flowing, he can score very quickly. But he's also susceptible, capable of scoring very slowly when he's not quite in the best touch. And that's only relevant compared to the other batters we have. Like Daryl Mitchell is nudging 100 strike rate. Rachin Ravindra, career ODI strike over 100. All these, like Will Young. I don't know what I'm just repeating the numbers that I said earlier, so I might chill out on that. But all these dudes are late 80s, over 90. And our young phenom is a young phenom because he's got a career ODI strike rate over 100. That's what makes him awesome. And then there's Devon Conway, who looks like he's playing Test cricket in an ODI team, in a T20 team. So I'm fine carrying a batter like Devon Conway if that's all we have. But again, that was the Blackcaps of 2006, whatever. That was the Blackcaps of previous eras where this is all we have. But as you say, we've got Will Young scored a century. Rachin Ravindra scored a century. Daryl Mitchell's just straight up one of the best batters in the world. Kane Williamson's out of form, but he's going nowhere. Tom Latham's in form. Glenn Phillips is Glenn Phillips. This is a new era of Blackcaps cricket, not only where you need to be playing at a high level to crack the first 11, but also we're winning games with Will O'Rourke and Michael Bracewell as our best bowlers in the Champions Trophy. We have won like 5 consecutive ODIs. We're 7-1 in ODIs without Tim Southey, without Trent Boult, without the legends of the golden generation that many thought would make the Blackcaps worse, losing those players. But the Blackcaps keep going on. What happens when you lose Lockie Ferguson? You bring in Kyle Jamieson. Right? What happens when you lose these legendary seamers? You bring in Will O'Rourke. What happens when you're missing out on batters? Oh, Guppy's gone. Well, we got Ravindra. Oh, Conway
we had
was
Finn Allen, and then we had Ravindra. There was a step in there that.
So it's just a good time to be a Blackcaps fan. Now, obviously, who knows how the rest of this tournament will play out, but it's been a good start. But it's also important to note that this good start in the Champions Trophy is part of a very good ODI period for the Blackcaps. As we've said before, this current version of the Blackcaps, tactically on point. Like, they're doing stuff in batter-friendly conditions to limit the flow of runs. They got some good spinners who, like, no one thinks of Bracewell as a really good spinner, but he's doing his job as a good spinner. The fielding, they are the best fielding team in the Champions Trophy. They're smashing boundaries like every other team. If we go to the old net run rate, Blackcaps and India are the only 2 teams who have played 2 games. They've both got 2 wins. The Blackcaps have a net run rate of 0.86. India has a net run rate of 0.64. No, it's a complicated equation, but that is to say the Blackcaps are playing really good cricket, but they're playing really good cricket in the Blackcaps way. We've got variety of lads chipping in, variety of lads contributing to winning cricket, best fielding, tactical precision, making the most of their resources. And it's just, I think, like, it makes you proud as a Kiwi to see a national team epitomizing how we want to be represented as Kiwi sports fans. But right now, they're doing it with really funky skills as well, which is what we've talked about with the youngsters coming through. Reece Mariu's got funky skills as a batter. Muhammad Abbas has funky skills as a all-rounder. Zach Folks has funky skills as an up-and-coming seamer. Like, this is the state of Kiwi cricket, I reckon, is reflected in how the Blackcaps are playing. And there's a little bit more juice, a little bit more X factor, a little bit more pizzazz in this current Blackcaps team, mixed in with all the Kiwi fundamentals that we have come to love about the Blackcaps.
Yeah, the other point with Conway, I guess, as well, is on top of the strike rate and the not scoring anywhere near as many runs as the other guys he's in contention with, but he has got some runs recently. I mean, it's what you're saying there about like he's not doing terribly. It's just that we got other guys who are doing much better. Like that's the simple equation of it. Is all it needs to be. But the other thing with him is although he's batting longer than he was and scoring more runs than he was when the dip was more apparent, as it has been in the previous 12 months, the dismissals still feel the same. You know, like he's still getting out, playing either around or inside the line of the ball, and like lots of edges, inside and outside edges. He played onto his stumps in the Bangladesh game, which looked particularly awkward and ugly. The way he got out there. It's that he's fighting through it clearly, but you can see it in the way that his strike rate is dipping and the dismissals are still kind of the same. Like he's doing well, but he's not doing nearly as well as he used to do. Like he's hanging around, he's grinding things out, but he used to be able to just slap boundaries through cover regularly in the first over of games earlier in his inning. Now he's just seems like he's taken a lot of time to get into it, which is maybe that's him working his way out of the slump. Hopefully that's what it is, but also it's not that consequential because we can just not pick him for the next game and have Raji Ravindra open with Will Young, who have both scored hundreds within the last two games. And Kane Williamson, you mentioned, is a little bit out of form after scoring 6 runs or something in the last 2 games. He scored 100 about 4 games ago. You know, even then he's got a recent century, even if his last couple innings haven't looked very flash. It doesn't like Devon Conway will just do the best he can with the opportunities he gets, but the Blackcaps don't have to live or die based on whether he finds form or not because they've just got better guys they can pick instead. You know.
This is no longer Kane Williamson's best year of ODI batting.
Oh.
So his 2 scores in the Champions Trophy have seen him dip down from what was a fantastic start to the year in ODI batting. He is still in his 3rd consecutive year averaging over 50 in ODI cricket.
And excluding 2024 where he didn't play any games. 3rd consecutive year in which he's played.
That's what I said. The 4 out of the last 4 years of his ODI batting, he's averaged over 50 as well. So he's welcome to have a few quiet knocks. And as aligned with what I was saying, the Blackcaps have won 2 Champions Trophy games with Kane Williamson doing nothing but catching.
Yeah,
he's not. Excuse me. He's not captain. He's not scoring runs. He's not bowling. He's just catching and chasing the ball, and the Blackcaps are winning.
Catching's been good though.
Oh yeah. If only they took a few catches against England, where the whole thing might have been a bit better there. We also have a White Ferns squad to play against Sri Lanka in ODIs and T20s, and I like it. I like the White Ferns selections. Haven't liked the White Ferns selections much in the last few years, but going when they selected Bella James for the Rose Bowl series, which the White Ferns lost, and they were comprehensively beaten by Australia in that ODI series, is a bit of a humbling experience after that T20 World Cup. But this ODI and T20 series tour against the older bilateral series against Sri Lanka, otherwise known as a series of cricket games by a touring nation. This is a good opportunity to integrate players into the White Ferns, and they have selected players who have skills that add to the White Ferns, but also because I was thinking, okay, what's the difference between selecting Bree Illing right now and selecting Molly Penfold a few years ago? Well, Bree Illing's played 4 seasons of domestic cricket and dominated as a lefty. So these players have earned their White Ferns selection from their performances in domestic cricket, where I think if I'm kind of assessing my thinking, being critical of my thoughts, before it felt more like they were selecting players who had the potential to be in the White Ferns and add to the White Ferns at the international level, but they didn't have any confidence from domestic cricket. They didn't have the runs and the wickets in domestic cricket to set you up as an international cricketer. Where, like, again, Bella James comes into the White Ferns having dominated Halliburton Johnston Shield in the best team, the Otago Sparks, who are straight into the final. I think they went 9-1 through the HBJ Shield season. Bree Illing comes into the White Ferns having taken lots of wickets in the HBJ Shield and Super Smash as a lefty swinging the ball. Izzy Sharp, like, she's still a youngster, but she's been around for maybe 4 seasons for Canterbury. And she hasn't necessarily dominated as far as consistent run production, but she's scored runs in patches each of those summers. And she's been in the grind of domestic cricket. She's got the confidence of playing cricket, Super Smash every other day, HBJ Shield every other weekend. So the players have been selected. We have Izzy Sharp. She's in the T20 squad. Very talented striker. So she adds some attacking impetus to the White Ferns squad. And I'm not seeing Lauren Down in the squad. So I think the likes of Izzy Sharp and then another youngster, perhaps the youngest youngster, I think, of them all, Emma McLeod from Central Districts, who might be 18 years old. She's 18. She's almost 19. And she's in the White Ferns squad. Now, she's a little bit different because this might be her first full summer of domestic cricket with CD. But she's actually performed well in domestic cricket to earn this selection. She's 18 years old, and in the HBJ Shield, she's got 300 runs at an average of 42.8. 250s in her 8 innings. She is CD's second best batter as an 18-year-old. And you can see from her highlights and her strokes that she plays, like, as Ben Sawyer said, these are the type of shots that they're looking for in the White Ferns. Like, are you playing punchy shots through the offside? Are you playing sweep shots? Can you hit boundaries everywhere? Because that is not often the case for some female cricketers. And Emma McLeod, she's got the talent. I don't know if she'll play much in this series, but it's a good development exercise to bring her in. And then we've got Bree Illing, who is one of the only lefty seamers in Aotearoa. And she swings the ball. She bowls pretty quickly. This is a good opportunity to bring her in. It's what do we got here? So Bree Illing's only playing ODIs. Polly Ingalls is only playing ODIs. Hannah Rose only playing ODIs. Izzy Sharp's only playing T20s. Rosemary Mayer T20s. Fran Jonas T20s. That means Bella James is open for both formats. Emma McLeod, she's going to be in the squad for both formats. And the one I really like is Eden Carson now being in every White Ferns squad. She's not one of these, like, Fran Jonas is now the player who's only selected for T20s. That used to be Eden Carson. But now Eden Carson's in both squads because she is the best bowler in New Zealand right now. She's currently, let me confirm this. She is first for wickets in HBJ Shield. Once again, playing for Otago, the best team in HBJ Shield. Eden Carson is the best bowler. Eden Carson was the leading wicket taker, best bowler in the Super Smash. So Eden Carson's leading the wicket taking both competitions, which means she's the best bowler right now, which means she should be in every single White Ferns squad, regardless of format. Good to see Jess Kerr in both squads as well. She's scoring runs. She just scored a century for Wellington. She is one of the best cricketers in New Zealand right now. But she didn't play in the Rose Bowl. She was in the ODI squad, but didn't play. Didn't play a whole lot at the T20 World Cup off the top of my head either. So now she's in both squads. It will be interesting to see who's the wicketkeeper with Ingles in the ODI squad. Izzy Gaze has been scoring a few runs, and she is very attacking. She's a hitter. And so I can see her earning a spot in the T20. No, maybe she's definitely going to be the T20 wicketkeeper because that's her best format, I believe. But she could play as a attacking batter in the ODI team if they want to. They might just rest Izzy Gaze, play Polly Ingles as the wicketkeeper batter. And also Hayley Jensen's back in the team, both squads, which is very deserving. She's one of the best seamers in Aotearoa. She's a pretty good batter as well, aggressive batter. And with no Molly Penfold, no Leah Tahuhu, I think Hayley Jensen's a good player to bring into the squad for both formats. So it just, like, I don't know. It's a crazy world we live in where we're just getting sensible White Fern squads now, I think. Amelia Kerr, she's on a T20 walkabout, so she's not playing, but it's all good. This is where opportunities are presented for other players. Sophie Devine's taken a break. It's all good. Let's get some other players involved. Most importantly, other players who have earned the opportunity. So I think this is a really good spot. And it's a good example of where women's cricket in New Zealand is at because there's a lot more players coming through. Hannah Francis, she's 18 or 19 years old, dominating with bat and ball for Wellington. Flora Devonshire, early 20s, dominating with bat and ball for CD. There's a lot of really good talent coming through, and we're just seeing it now sprinkled into the White Ferns squad on the back of strong performances at the domestic level.
Yeah, that's good and assuring because I did see that squad and three uncapped players added to White Ferns team is an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 21-year-old. And I'm thinking, are they up to the old tricks of picking players before they've actually earned it and just sitting like trying to treat the Premier national team as a development opportunity? Which, I mean, ultimately, like a lot of those players are in the squad now were picked like that. Fran Jonas is one of them, and Georgia Plimmer is one of them, and Izzy Gaze is one of them. Like the players who were picked very early because they have potential that they're now kind of fulfilling. Like they've got there. It wasn't a talent identification issue. It was is this the best way to develop your players kind of issue without letting them get the reps in at domestic cricket first and really kind of get a handle on their game and how they play and just get that confidence which you can bring forward. So I'm very assured to hear you say that the players they picked have done that. Like they are picking players who are, you don't peak at age 18, 20 or 21 or anything like that. These are players who will get better as they continue to play cricket, but then also they at least have that backlog of domestic stuff and form as well, current form as well as having had in most of those cases outside of the MM Cloud case, bit of a bolter on that count, but then like the other two have particularly had a couple of seasons as well, so they've had some ups and downs as well as just current good form. So yeah, I'm relieved to hear you lay that out as you did. It's actually quite an exciting team now, especially to see them probably playing without Amelia Kerr. Feels like you want to do that now and then. Like you want Amelia Kerr available as often as possible, but you also have to be careful of not making her into such a talisman that the team doesn't know what they are without her. So you got to play a few games without her in the same way that like, because this is late summer, Sri Lanka are coming for ODIs and T20s. Exactly the type of squad that Kane Williamson or Trent Bolt wouldn't have played, it's kind of the same thing. It's Amelia Kerr's not playing because she needs rest or anything like that. She's going to play somewhere else. She's I think what IPL or whatever, one of the things, doesn't matter.
Walkabouts.
Walkabouts, yeah, yeah, walkabouts. Um, and now the team get to function without her in a way that probably, yeah, every now and then I would imagine it helps just to remain a team without your talisman in the middle as well, just to keep things fresh and to keep everyone else kind of active and realizing that, like, oh, I can go and win games too. Don't have to wait for Mealy Kerr to do all the work. I could just score the 100 today. I could take the 5 wickets or whatever. It's that'll be good to see, and also good to see who actually does that as well, assuming they win these games. Like, who will be the players who do that and score the runs, take the wickets. That'll be cool. So, yeah, no, you've got me excited for this tour now.
There's the Halliburton-Johnston Shield final first, though. That is coming up this Saturday. It's a big finals weekend in Dunedin. So if you're in Dunedin, make sure you check out all the domestic cricket. Otago versus Auckland. Maddie Green, best batter in the HBJ Shield, 572 runs, averaging 63. She is in fantastic form, obviously playing for Auckland. Auckland also has Sachi Shari in good form, averaging 52 with 4 50s. Maddie Green's got 2 centuries, 3 50s. This is the interesting thing about women's cricket in Aotearoa. The best batters in HBJ Shield: Maddie Green, Caitlin Gurry, Kate Ibrahim, who's been averaging over 50 for like her 5th consecutive season, Sachi Shari, Felicity Robertson. All of those players are senior players, more experienced players. One of them's in the White Ferns. So you can still be like, oh, they're not selecting a winning team, but I'm not mad at it right now. So it is what it is. Then you got Bella James, who is the second best batter for Otago behind Felicity Robertson. Then we get to Hannah Francis, is what I'm saying. Let's check in. Hannah Francis, 19-year-old maybe? Hannah Francis, 19 years old. She is 7th for runs, averaging 32.9, and she has also got 12 wickets, averaging 19. So that's Hannah Francis, who isn't in any of these White Ferns squads. Those are the best batters. Best bowlers. No, this is the opposite to the best batters in HBJ Shield, because all the best bowlers, most of them are youngsters. Eden Carson, Ocean Bartlett, young leggy from CD. Her and Eden Carson are the only bowlers with 20 wickets. So if we need another spinner, need another leggy, Ocean Bartlett's on the rise. Bree Illing 3rd. Hannah Rowe, good season for her. She's 4th. Flora Devonshire, lefty spinner, lefty batter, another skill set that I can see the White Ferns wanting in the future. 18 wickets, averaging 17. Flora Devonshire, averaging 17 with the ball and 33 with the bat, which is excellent for a youngster like her. Jess Kerr, 16 wickets. Hayley Jensen, 15 wickets. Amy Hucker, 15 wickets. Anna Browning, 13 wickets. Right there in that list, we've got Flora Devonshire's got White Ferns potential. Ocean Bartlett's got White Ferns potential. Amy Hucker has White Ferns potential. Anna Browning definitely has White Ferns potential. Hannah Francis has White Ferns potential. All those players will be in the White Ferns mix over the next 5 years. Bank on it. I'm fairly confident about that. Ford Trophy. Let me take a little moment there. Auckland versus CD, little bit weird. It's in Dunedin, but it's on Friday. So in Dunedin, you got a Ford Trophy Eliminator final Friday. You got the HBJ Shield final Saturday. You got the Ford Trophy final Sunday. Auckland versus CD on Friday and Canterbury Australia, on Sunday. Canterbury, who have lost 5 consecutive Super Smash finals, but they also have 2 Ford Trophy championships in their last 4 years, during this period of Super Smash failures. And they just finished first in the Ford Trophy. So yes, Canterbury they do have that Super Smash final losing habit, but they're also an excellent Ford Trophy team over the same period. Auckland versus CD, just off the top of my head, Fascinated to see how Bevan Jacobs bats. I obviously got a lot of big dogs playing this game, Neesham, Allen, those type of characters, but fascinated to see how Bevan Jacobs bats. Fascinated to see how Jock McKenzie plays, has been batting 3, bowling, very good all-rounder. CD, obviously you got the big dogs, Tom Bruce, Dane Cleaver, Brett Randall, Jaden Lennox, Jack Boyle, those characters, but I mean, Curtis Heafy was instrumental in them winning the Super Smash. And one-day batting is his best format. Curtis Heafy is currently second for runs in the Ford Trophy, 433, averaging 62. So it'll be interesting to see how Curtis Heafy goes for CD. And who's the best Canterbury batter? Cole McConchie, 339 runs, averaging 42. Reece Matayu has been scoring runs in the Ford Trophy recently. A couple of 50s, which Plunkett Shields his best format. Now he's starting to get a bit of runs in Ford Trophy, but he averages 14 in like 2 Super Smash games. So he hasn't really expressed himself as a T20 batter just yet. But he is finding form at a very important stage for Canterbury in the Ford Trophy, who are the relevant wicket takers. Matt Bacon, best bowler, shout out to him. Liam Dudding's been very good for Wellington. But then we go Brett Randall and Jaden Lennox, 3rd and 4th in Ford Trophy wicket taking. Brett Randall, like what he's doing. I can see him adding himself to the Blackcaps depth chart at some point soon. CD also have Blair Tickner. He hasn't played recently, so I'm curious about his involvement. But then you got Ray Toole. So you might have a battle of the lefties, maybe. Ben Lister, if he's back in action. Did play the last game, I believe. Ben Lister, Ray Toole, 2 lefties to watch out for. And if we're including Andrew Hazeldine, very aggressive, fast lefty, that sets the tone for the lefties in Aotearoa. And if we include Bree Illing, I mean, we got lefties. Don't worry about that. Flora Devonshire is a lefty spinner as well. So we got lefties. We even got lefty batters because Flora Devonshire is a lefty batter. Best bowler for Canterbury, Zach Fox, obviously. Mandatory. So shout out to that. Shout out to cricket. Good cricket happening. 4 trophy finals, HBJ Shield finals. We got the White Ferns squad with a couple of youngsters. Good squad there. And we got the Blackcaps dominating to start the Champions Trophy. So it's all looking lovely for Aotearoa cricket right now. And I suspect it's looking lovely for the Football Ferns. I wasn't a dominating performance against Costa Rica. I think that was in Costa Rica, but they did have a 1-1 draw to start the Michael Main interim era, and India Paige Riley scored a banger from outside the box. So I don't know. They didn't lose the game. They had a nice draw, and Paige Riley scored a banger. So that's almost as good as it gets for the Football Ferns right now, considering how things have gone over the last 6 months. When are they playing again?
On Wednesday afternoon. So tomorrow they've got a second game. And I think the second game will frame how we feel about the tour. Because like ordinarily, a 1-1 draw against Costa Rica would probably be a bit of a disappointment. Like not a major disappointment. It's not a huge setback. A defeat, a 3-0 defeat or something would count as a huge setback. This wasn't that. Although they did have to rely on Vic Essen making a number of very good saves in that game. So she was in top form to repel Costa Rica, particularly in the first half. But I think there's enough sort of mitigating factors where the draw was solid. And if they can build off of it in the second game, then you start looking towards a nice, good progressive tour of Costa Rica / of San Jose, because I think both games were in the same place. And it was super windy in that game as well, which was a weird one. The pitch looked all right from the TV, but you can't always tell because there was a lot of bad touches out there from both teams. That might just be because neither team is like top of the pops in world football. It might just be that their technique isn't as good. It might have been the pitch. I don't know. Can't tell that from the FIFA Plus coverage. Although, oh man, like glorious moment at halftime of that game watching on FIFA Plus when I realized that you can now rewind the live streams on FIFA Plus. That is going to be so much more helpful for the covering stuff when I don't have to wait for the replay to be uploaded again a couple hours later. That's immense relief when that happened. But yeah, the Michael Main came in. It's weird that it feels like his first tour as interim, but it's his third tour as interim. But what we saw from them leading up to the Olympics and then at the Olympics was pretty much a continuation of how they were trying to play under Jeka Komkova. So it was a different voice, but kind of the same style. Michael Main's been allowed to bring in his own coaching staff team around him and everything, and he's promised that they're going to try a couple different things. He has some fresh ideas. We'll see. Well, so I was waiting to see what those might be. He also did the thing that every coach seems to do, male and football in New Zealand football, is talking about how we're going to bring the style forward and be more. We're going to be more, braver in possession and whatever. And especially with the Ferns, sometimes I just wonder if that's actually making them worse by trying to be a team that holds the ball more often when their strength is in how well they defend and win the ball and try to counterattack and that. But there's just kind of this, I don't know, there's a little bit of a stigma against that at the moment. But the way the Ferns lined up against Costa Rica was with a back three. It was kind of like a 3-5-2 formation. So three midfielders, couple wing backs. Three centre backs, two strikers, which was Katie Kitching playing up alongside Kelly Brown. So Kitching quite far forward there. It was a good aggressive attacking team that was picked. Didn't entirely work. The back three was quite messy and particularly with their positioning. And I think the wing backs got caught out a lot because they picked Hannah Blake on one side and Indy Riley on the other side, who are both attacking players. Even though Indy Riley has been playing a lot as a wingback for Crystal Palace in the WSL, so she was at least primed for it. I think she was one of New Zealand's better players as well. It's just that there were times they'd lose the ball in the midfield and the wingbacks are trying to attack and there's just no one there out wide. The back three gets stretched. So there's things like that where it's like that's going to take a few games. It will take fewer games if they actually pick Katie Bowen and CJ Bott to play in two of those crucial positions, who are your two best players. So fingers crossed they're back on the side with no dramas next time around, because it's pretty obvious that they need them, especially when you're moving into a formation that suits them even more than what you were playing beforehand. But yeah, there was solid stuff from there was some solid stuff from the Ferns, particularly in how they responded, because they didn't start the game very well, but they did score just before halftime, and then their second half was a lot better as well. And so if they're improving from half to half, hopefully they improve from game to game. And if they have a good solid win on Wednesday in the second game, I think we can call this a successful tour.
A lot of formation chat there, which we know that I really appreciate. So the players were playing on the field, they were playing on the right, they were playing on the left, they were playing in defense, they were playing in midfield, and they were playing in attack. And I also did you hit on a few buzzwords. Not only did you hit on the formation that's a buzz topic for the Niche Cage football department, but you also hit on a few buzzwords. You mentioned mitigating factors, which is
Did I?
Yes, which is one of the strangest things, specifically in rugby union, but you also see it in rugby league, because the referee,
with the old high shots and stuff.
the high shots, and there was no mitigation. There were mitigating factors. There was no mitigating factors. Just use words like, no, this isn't to call you out, as I have a habit of doing. But like, okay, you're a rugby player. English might even be your second language, and then you got the referee telling you there was no mitigation. Like, what? Like, let's just use proper words instead of these like kind of buzzwords that a lot of regular people don't understand. A lot of rugby players won't understand. But the referees, they're all about the mitigation. There was no mitigating factors, so you're gone for 10, mate, whatever it is. And you also mentioned being brave. This is another buzzword for me. Being brave. You hear it a lot in sports. The batters need to be brave. Well, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is play a forward defense. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is bowl top of off. But it's like, oh, we need to be brave. We need to be attacking. We need to be aggressive. We need to take the game on. But that's why you lose, because you don't understand the nuance of being brave. Sometimes the bravest, most courageous thing you can do is to be defensive, is to do nothing. So it always kind of, whenever I hear a referee say mitigation, I spew up. Whenever I hear someone being brave, I'm like, there's other ways to be brave. And
That sounds like it's not the word, it's the definition of bravery, right? Because that's kind of what I was thinking of about this idea of the Ferns, or whichever, because they say it about the All Whites, they say it, and there's multiple coaches back say it about the youth teams as well.
I'm thinking very specifically England cricket, but that's my own
England
kind
cricket,
of fetish.
yes, is probably pushed that a little bit too much, and
more so
areas.
the women are very big on being brave and being courageous.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's in the footballing sense that's tend to be like we're gonna take risks on attack. It was like you were gonna do that anyway, surely. Like it just seems like there is definitely a I don't know, there's this idea that positivity, bravery, courage, whatever they mean a certain style of play, which I agree with you on that, where there's other ways to do it. And actually, if everyone's expecting you to do one thing, well, potentially it is actually, in terms of the literal meaning of bravery and courage, it's probably braver and more courageous to go against the grain of what everyone else is trying to play with, which I feel like I felt that a little bit about the Wellington Phoenix when I'm seeing people complaining about how they're like this, but the style of play is so bad. It's like the style isn't the problem, the execution is the problem. But the fact that they're sitting, like the fact that they're a defensive-ish, counter-attacking type team, that's brave too. Like, what's the difference in that? It's not negative football if you have a plan of how you're going to score goals, right? Like you might not be able to do it as well as you're planning, but it's not like they turn up playing, because you see it as well with lineup chat with the Phoenix too. It's like, well, they've picked 7 defenders, but no, they haven't. They've picked 4 defenders and 3 or 4 midfielders, just that those midfielders can also play in defense. But they're not playing in defense. They're playing in midfield, or they're playing on the wing or whatever, They're not picking a back 7 formation. It's not how they're lining up. It's you got me going now as well, but I think there's ideas like there's a thing about the definition of some of those words where people seem to think it only means one thing, which takes it away from what the word actually means. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do, but I don't care anymore because we need to talk Wellington Phoenix.
Yeah, let's
Auckland
move on
FC,
to some real topics.
Aotearoa Derby, where 27,000 people showed up at the Temple of Mount Smart to watch a game of football, which is far superior than Super Rugby. This is where I want to start, because I don't understand how expectations for the Wellington Phoenix can be so high when your centre midfield is Sheridan and Roa-Conchi. 2 good players who are 2 young players. So when I'm watching the Aotearoa Derby, and it was pretty obvious. Phoenix were pretty good 20 minutes or so. By that time, I'm like, wait, who's in the center of the midfield? The young fella Sheridan and Roa-Conchi, who hasn't started many games this season and is still quite a young fella. Oh, they're doing an all right job. They're competitive. They're, going back and forward with Auckland FC. And ever since I had that thought, then the capitulation started for Wellington Phoenix. But there needs to be, for me, outside looking in, if you're a Wellington Phoenix fan, you need to have a little sip of the reality brew. Like, you're not really playing with your big dogs at that stage. Like, Costa's the only one starting. Rojas is coming off the bench from a major injury layoff. Roof is coming off the bench after an illness. You're playing against the best team in the A-League with 2 youngsters as your center midfielders. I like them. I like all the Wellington Phoenix youngsters. If you add in Hughes, well, then 3 of your kind of core 4, 2 center midfielders, 2 center backs, 3 out of the 4 are youngsters. Like, let's not be delusional. Let's not be delusional about what's possible if you're playing with that many youngsters in key positions. Like, that's the reality of sport when you're playing with youngsters in key positions. It's going to be very difficult to beat other teams, let alone the best team. And I don't think Chiefy is doing that just because he likes young talent. No, he's doing that because Roof has just been out ill, sick, for weeks. Like, he didn't just have the flu. He was sick for weeks, and he's just coming back. You could get in, okay, they released some players. Retray, was he out injured, or was he...
He was injured, I think, for that game. He wasn't in the squad at all.
So your 2 experienced midfielders, Rufa and Retray, are not capable of starting the game. They are your 2 best center midfielders. So the equivalent to me is, okay, the Warriors, they're starting an NRL game against the Penrith Panthers with Luke Hanson and Jet Cleary as their halves. You're not winning. So to me, that is the strangest thing. And I've said it all season, right? Like, the Wellington Phoenix, they're playing with a lot of youngsters in key positions. Hughes is starting a lot of games at centre back. Sometimes you've got 2 youngsters at centre back because when Wootton was out injured or whatever. Sometimes your whole back 4 is youngsters. If we're counting Piper as a youngster, but he's an older youngster. Like, that is the reality for Wellington Phoenix. And yes, it hurts to lose to Auckland FC. Yes, it hurts to lose A-League games and be in the bottom half of the ladder. But, like, your best players have been out injured or unavailable for most of the season. And your youngsters are battling away to keep you afloat. Like, Tim Payne's only come back from injury recently. So let's talk about those injuries. Tim Payne's been out injured for a decent time. Roof has been out injured ill for a decent time. Retray's currently unavailable. Rojas had a significant injury layoff.
2. Rojas had 2 significant injury layoffs. He came back and got injured again.
Was Nagasawa playing?
Nagasawa is the one flip side to what you're saying there, in that they did have an experienced midfielder sitting on the bench unused. I mean, they probably would have used him if it was a closer game, but it wasn't much point later on. But yeah, he was one instance of a guy who was available. He was there on the bench. They didn't play him.
Yeah, that is, like, fair play. That is a little bit weird. But then you get into, okay, what are the youngsters? What are the emerging players not so good at that Auckland FC is very good at? Physicality, intuition, reading the play, understanding the rebounds and the tap-ons and all that stuff, because that's how Auckland FC scored their early goals. That's how Auckland FC dominated their game. Rebounds, second chance opportunities. Like, the ball just falls into vacant space. It's a 50-50 ball. Auckland FC wins that. And they win that because they got bigger bodies, aside from Kelly Hield. But they got bigger bodies. They're more experienced. They're more physical. They're more robust. And they win the game. So I think, like, ultimately, unfortunately for the Wellington Phoenix, all these derbies have played out according to the situation of both teams. Like, Auckland FC is the best team in the A-League, which means they do a lot of shit really, really well. Starting with effort, intensity, physicality. The Wellington Phoenix is struggling this season because all their best players have been out injured or unavailable, and their youngsters are playing in a lot of key positions, and they're playing big minutes. Like Sheridan plays big minutes every game. Hughes is playing big minutes every game. You got Kelly Hilda in goal. He's playing the whole game as a goalie. He's going to make mistakes. He's a youngster. There's a lot of these. Am I crazy for like viewing it that simple? Because I am conscious I'm not a footballing expert, so I'm a bit wary about that. But like these derbies, just to me, reflect the situations of both clubs, and I still believe that presents a lot of optimism for the Wellington Phoenix moving forward. Like they will be a better club, a better organization for the shit they've been through in these 3 derby games.
Yeah, I mean, I think there might be some people who would call you crazy for that, but if they do, they can call me crazy as well because I kind of agree with that. I just think there's a lot of emotions flying around at the moment, particularly on the Wellington Phoenix side, and there's been some lashing outs that I've seen from a lot of the reaction. Like I I don't see how you can blame the coach for any of this. Although, there are selections. He tinkers a lot, and maybe you can have some gripes and whatever. But I mean, I already just did a thing about how I think their style of play is it's not nearly as negative as it gets treated as. So we'll leave that one there. I haven't already done that, but
I
yeah,
don't
go.
like. I don't view their style as defensive though, because they early in that game there was the exact pattern I was talking about,
Mm.
where the ball goes straight into like they always play into, like that might be an issue because they always play the ball into the same spaces. So if you're a experienced physical team like Auckland FC, you can kind of get the jump on where the ball's going to be and the patterns. But there was a pattern. They play a direct ball to Costa. He lays it off. Then they play another forward ball. Like the Phoenix, to me, yes, they love to go back. They love to play out from defense, which is brave. But if you're going against the grain, it's also brave to just play a long ball, as we're talking about. Sometimes the easiest option is not playing long, but sometimes they will play long. That's the bravest thing you can do. But the Wellington Phoenix, whenever they go forward, it's really intricate passing. It's passing into space, guys moving into space, and tap-ons. And Chico came into he played a lot of minutes in that game.
Played the whole game.
He's a razzle-dazzle extraordinaire. Like, there's nothing defensive about him, aside from his late challenge, which I did love to see. You're a new signing, you're an attacking wizard, there's a breakaway, you just chop him down. That's beautiful. It was good stuff from him. He earned my respect. A little bit of mana for Chico. Like, I understand the Wellington Phoenix do go back a lot, which is very frustrating. Any sports team that goes back, check yourself. Like, we're here to go forward. We're here to have fun. Like, just like that. I think that's my ultimate sporting thing. Like, let's just have fun. However you want to do it, just have fun playing your sport. But I also, like, to their detriment, the Wellington Phoenix move forward in a very intricate style. And there is nothing a bit defensive about their attacking style. Like, they're passing the ball into risky spaces. They're inviting a 50-50 contest. They're doing little tap-ons. Like, Wellington Phoenix women are not defensive. It's nothing defensive.
No, they're good defensively, but they're not defensive.
Exactly. And they're not defensive because they're so frisky in attack. Like, they go too far in the other direction, but there is a little bit of that still with the Wellington Phoenix men, where they love to challenge the opposition with their passing and with their movement. So a little bit of a rant there, but based on what I've seen, I can't, like, you could say Auckland FC is more of a defensive team, because they win the ball off you with their defense. They create attacking chances from their defense. So in a logical, like, conclusion, if you're creating your attacking chances from defense, you're a defensive team.
Yeah, and that is what the Phoenix are trying to do as well when they pass it around at the back, is they're trying to draw you forward. They want teams to press them so that they can pass through it, which is tricky to do, but they're pretty good at it. You saw a few moments, more than a few. There were actually quite a number of them in the derby there, where they were able to pass through the press from Auckland FC. They want you to do that so that you then commit more numbers forward and there's space and behind, and they attack in that space and behind. Like it is an attacking strategy to have the ball further back around their defense. Now, do they always get the balance right? Absolutely not. And that's been a factor, but also I think the main factor is that they just haven't had someone to do that, that sort of pivoting between the two phases of like going from sideways to forwards. Like they've so desperately needed someone who, well, frankly, someone who does exactly what Chico Heraldes does. And you saw more than enough of that from him on his debut to think, well, this is exactly the player that they've been lacking, and they're going to have him for the last 9 weeks. And Marco Rojas is back from injury, and Tim Payne is seemingly fit again, although he always gets a knock or two every game. But that's how Tim Payne plays. That's unavoidable. That's the burdens of being T-Payne. But Alex Rufer is building up his minutes again. He might be available to start, probably not 90 minutes, but he might be available to start on, I think it's Friday when they play. So frankly, they should have a stronger team over the last 2 months of the season than they've had at any point up until this point. Like they will be better moving forward. It's just unfortunately they had to do the derby game first, and Auckland FC were just better and much better, like bit stronger, better, fitter, faster, whatever. Like they're a more complete team full of more complete footballers, and their first three, man, it was. I was trying to write about it afterwards. Like, I don't even know what to say about these guys without just repeating things, but the repetitions are there because they do the same thing every week. Like they don't start fast. They poke and they prod and they make sure they make sure they're sturdy at the back, which arguably could be seen as a defensive tactic. But I mean, you can be a good attacking team by being defensive, same as we're talking about like Phoenix Women are a good defensive team, but they don't play defensively. It can be the other way around as well. Like they poke and they prod and they look for little chinks in the armor, then they find something and then they just rip you to shreds doing that one thing. Like they did it to the Phoenix, 3 goals in 10 minutes because they realized the Phoenix couldn't handle these aerial crosses, which is weird because normally the Phoenix are really good at that. Hughes is strong in the air. Wooden is especially strong in the air. No one's as strong as Sermon is in the air, but they've lost him, so there's a step back. Another thing to consider of why the Phoenix potentially overachieved last season, but then regardless of that, they're not going to be the same team again when you lose 3 of your best players, right? But the Auckland FC, 3 goals in 10 minutes, all from aerial crosses, a couple of them from scoring on the second or even third or fourth phase afterwards. Like it's not just that Phoenix don't deal with the first one, they're also not getting to the loose ball afterwards. Like that's big man footy. And when you have the youngest player in the Wellington Phoenix, not Wellington, the youngest player in the Auckland FC squad starting lineup in that game was Alex Paulson, who's 22 years old. There were 5 players in the Phoenix starting 11 who are younger than Alex Paulson, plus Corbin Piper, who's only a couple months older than him and has played way fewer A-League games. So, and I mean, you look at because their average ages weren't crazy. Auckland's average age of that 11 was 28. Phoenix's was 25 and a half. So it's not a major difference, but that's because the Phoenix have a lot of young guys, 19, 20, 21, 22. And then they have a 33-year-old Scott Wooden, a 30-year-old Tim Payne, 31-year-old Tim Payne, 30-year-old, I think that's Hideki Ishige, 29-year-old Heraldes, 35-year-old Costa Barbarouses. So the Phoenix had no one between the age of 22 and 29. The Auckland FC's starting lineup had a 22-year-old, had a 26-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 26-year-old, 28-year-old, 24, 26. More than half of their team is in that sort of prime of their career range, right? Like these are not two teams that are built equally. One of them has a few good senior players and a lot of youngsters pushing through who are still finding their feet and are not as far advanced as Paulson, Sermon, Old were last season. Like these guys are a year behind where they were. And then Auckland FC have a bunch of guys in their prime who are ready to win football games right now. Like that's not a fair contest.
Yeah, I don't really even know if there's a starting player from that Wellington Phoenix team who you can put in the Auckland FC team. Like the Auckland FC team is just better. They're better players. They're more experienced. They're steady at that level. But the zone I want to really focus on for a few minutes before we get into the rugby league, Rogerson and Mata. There was a really fun battle between like Rogerson and Corbin Piper on that side of the field. Love to see that. And I think Rogerson banged a shot in from outside the box.
Yeah, he did.
Like
He
this
did.
seems like a really good phase for Rogerson, feeling confident, scoring goals, probably playing his best footy. The other thing I was thinking about with Max Mata, and I like as we've talked a lot about it, Auckland FC, they look a better team with Mata and Mai as their kind of attacking duo. I'm going to do a quick search, but off the top of your head, do you think Max Mata is the same size as Chris Wood, like same height?
No, I think he's slightly shorter. Yeah, I'm not sure. Would it be around 1 meter 9? Well, it's not quite as big as you think he is, but I think he'd be around about 1 meter 90 or something. Max Mata's probably 6'1", maybe. But he has a leap on him. He gets up and wins those headers, and that because they were a great defensive team from game one. It took them time to build into their sort of attacking structures a bit more, and I'm pretty confident at this point after seeing it displayed in the third derby. Like the elevation of Max Mata to the starting lineup was kind of the thing that did it for them, because they were a team that loves to cross the ball, but they had Guillermo Mai up front by himself and Jake Brimmer playing in behind him, two shorties, right? Neither of them are getting up for those headers. Well, Max Mata does, and he doesn't even have to win the header. Like I think it was it the second goal, Moreno's second goal, where a cross comes in from the left-hand side, would have been Francis de Vries, lobs it up. Isaac Hughes and Lucas Kelly-Heald both go for the same header up against Max Mata. No one really wins the header. Three of them go up at once. No one really wins it, but the ball falls behind them to where Nathan Moreno slams it in, which may or may not have clipped in off Logan Rogers and Tommy Smith trying to suggest that afterwards. I actually think it did. Looking at the replays, I think there might be a case to say that. I also think there might be a case to say it hit his hand as it did. But that came about from Max Mata's presence in the middle, just getting up and challenging. He didn't win the header. He didn't score the goal. He didn't get an assist, but well, he might have got an assist, actually. I'm not sure how they ranked that. It might have come back off him. But his presence there attacking that cross led to a goal. Whether it was direct or not, that doesn't happen without him.
Yeah, Max Mata's 186 centimeters, Chris Wood 191. So you were correct. You're
Right.
pretty accurate, actually. So credit to you. You mentioned the crosses as the weakness, as the strong point. I think it was more the second phase. Like,
Well, one leads to the other, right?
yeah, but if you win the second phase, who cares what you do first? Like, if that to me, that is the difference between the two teams right now. Auckland FC, they're winning the second phase, whether it's their intuition to follow the ball, whether it's the physical capacity, they're fitter, they're stronger. So they're not only predicting where the ball's going to be and getting there, but they're winning the ball in the second phase, whether it was for the goals, whether it's in the midfield, whether it's in defense. But and to me, so if you're getting crosses coming in and the ball's kind of squirting out to the edge of the box, that's where your center midfielders are. And if you got like for Strata, he's winning that ball. Rufer, he's winning that ball. But that like Roa Conchi, Sheridan, they just switch off for a little bit and they don't win that ball. So I'm not too fussed. Like, yeah, sure, you might win a header, lose a header. But I mean, as you said, Max Mata, he's there to disrupt it. Like, it's not easy to just win headers when you got dudes jumping up with you. But it's all about the reaction to that phase. Auckland FC consistently won those reactionary moments across the field. Wellington Phoenix didn't. And it was interesting because that felt like the whole situation, like that was the whole kind of blueprint for the game. But it was weird how that then manifested itself directly in goals. Like goals came from Auckland FC winning the reaction.
Italiano said the same thing in his press conference too. He said exactly that. It just felt like Auckland, especially in that spell, were just winning every second ball. And that is like, yeah, because you can win the first header. coaches talk a lot about the first contact from those crosses. Like you win the first header, you've potential. If you win it well enough, you've dealt with the situation. There is no second phase, or the second phase is somewhere where you don't have to worry about it. If you don't, you still have to react. And the Phoenix won. They had a lot of clearances in that game. They not as many as they should have, but they were winning some of those. They were at least disrupting them. But on the second phase stuff, they just weren't getting there. They weren't reacting in time. And I suspect that was more than a tactical thing, more than a physical thing. That's really just a mental thing, isn't it? It's they're a little bit, especially in that spell leading up to halftime, they were dares in the headlights, and they just, yeah, they looked rattled in a way, which again is another symptom of having a lot of young players in your team, is they haven't experienced that kind of pressure before, and certainly not when the whole game is going against you like that, and you're conceding goals and it feels like everything's crumbling and you just need to hang on till half time. If they'd kept it at 2-0 leading into half time, well then Luke Brooks-Smith, got to mention Luke Brooks-Smith as well, coming on Phoenix's youngest ever goal scorer, one of the youngest ever goal scorers in A-League history, doing what he did, and also setting up a goal for Auckland, which is the give and the take of chucking a dude like that out there. But a lot of promise from what he showed there. It was his best A-League cameo yet. If his goal had made it 2-1, well, actually, there's not such a gulf between the teams at that point. They're one moment away from getting back even, and I actually kind of feel that about that game. I don't feel like the actual flow of the game was a 6-1 advantage for Auckland FC. I just think Auckland FC punished the little areas and mistakes they were able to find, weaknesses in the Phoenix game. They punished it ruthlessly. Phoenix has happened most of the season and weren't able to punish ruthlessly what they were able to find, which frankly against Auckland FC is not much. You're feeding on scraps there, but still, I don't think they were viciously outplayed for the entirety of that game. I think they had a terrible spell in the last 15 minutes of the first half, and I think they finished the game poorly. Once they conceded again, they then conceded a couple more times late on. Two of those goals were directly from losing the ball in their own half. One was the Luke Brooks-Smith pass across goal. The other was Verstrada rushing up on, I think it was Tim Payne. Tim Payne was angling infield and Verstrada tackled him, and then Logan Rogerson smashed that one in. Brilliant finish. Reminiscent of the goal he scored for the All Whites against Malaysia, which was like, I don't remember seeing Logan Rogerson score a goal like that before, but now I've seen him score two of them in a couple of months, so I guess this is just part of his bag now. So it's ruthless stuff from Auckland FC, but I don't know if the Phoenix were as far away behind, but then again, like it's also I can't write about how good Chris Wood is every week because he scores goals and doesn't do much else. But then scoring goals is the most important thing. It's like, yeah, well, Auckland FC punishing those things is far more important than having 70% possession in the game. So yeah, it was emphatic, it was comprehensive, and it is what Auckland are doing is pretty outstanding. But there is also like, I don't know. I can see the Phoenix bouncing back from this as long as they don't get in their heads about how bad that particular day was, because they will have a stronger team the rest of the way.
Let's finish with a bit of rugby league. We've got the first round of games: Warriors versus Raiders, Panthers versus Sharks. But the most important Aotearoa Warriors nugget right now is that the Warriors, I think Toby Crosby is still with the Warriors. I'm pretty confident he is. So if the Warriors have Toby Crosby and a young fella from Christchurch, Bishop Neal, in their system, they have two dudes who have delivered some of the craziest rugby league highlights that I've ever seen. Like Toby Crosby scored 2 tries. He scored 1 try off the kickoff last year as a prop, and he scored another try just taking a hit up and literally beating at least 10 defenders to score a try and running 50 meters to score that try. That was last year. This year, we've seen Bishop Neal scored a few really good tries, and then he scored an absolutely ridiculous try for the Warriors under-17 team where he did a chip and chase in the midfield and ran to the corner as a forward. So the most important thing about the Warriors that I can share right now is they have 2 players who have delivered some of the craziest highlights that I've ever seen, that I've ever put together. So I think that, and that comes after we've like had moments, have flashes of Leka Halasima doing crazy shit as a 17-year-old in New South Wales Cup. So I wouldn't worry about the Warriors' development pipeline right now. I don't worry about the junior results, and we don't have time to go into depth about what's happening there. But I will say the junior results, so SG Ball, under 17 Harold Matthews, the New South Wales Cup team has been top 4 for 2 years in a row with youngsters. So you can worry about the under 17 team, you can worry about the under 19 team, you can worry about the under 21 team. But the Warriors have had a good reserve grade New South Wales Cup team with youngsters, many of whom should have been playing under 19s, many of whom should have been playing under 21. So I'm not too worried about those junior results, because the most important area is youngsters entering New South Wales Cup. Because the best youngsters are playing New South Wales Cup. The best youngsters are getting into New South Wales Cup. And the Warriors have had a very successful New South Wales Cup team, always full of youngsters. So that's the most important area to watch out for and track results. But it hasn't started yet, so we can't talk about it. We do have this NRL footy. The Warriors, the funky thing I'm thinking about is, how do you get a Warriors team with Ali Leotau at centre? I think you can have Jacob Laban starting edge forward, and then Dimitri Vaimonga, Leka Halasima on the bench. That's all I want. I don't know if it will happen. We're recording this on Tuesday. Teamless Tuesday is tonight. But I want a Warriors team with those 4 youngsters in the team. That is the main thing that I'm looking forward to this season, and more Taine Tuaupiki. I think you can carry Taine Tuaupiki on the wing. Nickel Crockstar fullback, Tuivasa Sheka on the wing. A lot of running, a lot of oomph, a lot of power. Taine Tuaupiki, a bit of speed, bit of zip. More variety in the style of running as well, I think, is very important for the Warriors. So I'm interested in Taine Tuaupiki perhaps getting a wing spot. But the most exciting thing for me, or aside from Fisher Harris, Barnett, Aaron Clark in the middle going crazy, whether it's round 1, whether it's later in the season, I'm looking out for the Warriors team that has Leotawa, Laban, Vaimonga, and Halasima in the same team. I want Laban to start, and I want Niokore on the bench. So then you got a bench of Dylan Walker, Vaimonga, Halasima, Niokore. To me, that's the best Warriors team. Everything else is fairly stock standard. But yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. And the thing I'm probably watching the most is Luke Metcalf and his long kicking. Well, it's both kicking. Because I actually think Luke Metcalf has a better long kicking game than Sean Johnson. I think his bombs are better. I think he's got better accuracy with the long kicks. He's already shown the 40-20 stuff, which is good. But I think Sean Johnson had a better short kicking game. So how Luke Metcalf dictates where the Warriors are playing through his kicking game is going to be very interesting, with the long kicks, but also those short kicks, the grubbers, the chips to the corner, the chips to the edge, and just how he controls the tempo, the flow, the style of play the Warriors are operating with through his kicking game. Because I don't think the Warriors, this is the thing, I don't think the Warriors controlled games with their kicking very well last season. And I think Luke Metcalf, who did an interview with the Warriors YouTube channel, and he said, he's played a lot of halfback. He's not like a number 6 trying to learn halfback. Like, he is a halfback. I think he has the capacity with his running game, with his passing game, and then then what I'm watching for with his kicking game. I think he has the capacity to control the Warriors footy a lot better than they were last season. Of course, there's other teams playing. Raiders, they've got a bit of drama. They've got a bit of drama in the other country. So not sure what's going to be happening there. But obviously you got Matthew Tomoko starting centre. He's the main lad from Aotearoa to watch out for with the Raiders. Just hoping he can maintain his high level of play and we don't see a dip heading into his kind of third, fourth seasons. The other game is Sharks versus Panthers. Panthers, I don't think we're going to get Preston Ricky in the top 17. So that will be a bummer. And I don't think we're going to get Trent Toilau. Trent Toilau was in the Kiwi squad last year as a player born and raised in Melbourne. He chose to represent the Kiwis, just like Casey McLean chose to represent the Kiwis despite being born and raised in Sydney. Casey McLean, he's going to be starting centre. He's going to be starting winger, either or. He's awesome. Trent Toilau has been very good in the preseason. I don't think he's in the top 17, but he might get a bench spot. So watch out for Trent Toilau because he adds to the halves depth for New Zealand Kiwis. Then we have the Sharks. Braden Hamlin-Uele playing through the middle. He's kind of dipped away a wee bit, so watch out for Braden Hamlin-Uele to see what level he's playing at with the Sharks. He did play for the Kiwis a few years ago. Has also played for Samoa, I believe. The Sharks also have Ronaldo Mulatalo, high-level Kiwis winger, and KL Airo. This would be the worst spot to assume that KL Airo is going to be playing for the Kiwis because he grew up in the Cook Islands. He's actually one of these players who grew up in the Cook Islands, grew up in Tonga, grew up in Samoa. So with respect to KL Airo and respect to Cook Islands Rugby League, I'm not assuming he's going to play for the Kiwis. If it happens, it happens, but he is a hearty Cook Islands Rugby League player. He did live in Auckland as a teenager, going to Mount Albert Grammar, playing for Mount Albert Rugby League. But he's someone to watch out for, adding to the centre depth for Kiwis. But also Mawane Hiroti from Taranaki, from New Plymouth. He is a very good outside back, can play centre, can play wing, can play fullback. And he is a very good clubman for the Sharks. He's always there. He re-signs with the Sharks. They show faith in him. He does a good job as a versatile outside back, but he's also a high pedigree junior. Went to the Rabbitohs as a youngster from Taranaki. So he's been on this journey for a long time as a high pedigree youngster. Now he's just doing a versatile role for the Cronulla Sharks. That is the niche cast. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church it.